Hey there, fans of the Survivor Super Fun Time Show. This is Kevin from the Super Fun Time Show. And this past episode of Survivor was an excellent one. Survivor 47, we had a lot of really awesome stuff happen. We had the big fallout of the previous Gata Tribal Council. This was the big blind side that Genevieve pulled off, along with Rome, of course, and Sol, who got a part of it. And this was the big fallout where Teeny was really left out in the open, someone that has been considered a fan favorite, and honestly, someone who has a pretty awesome chance to win the game based off of the edit so far from what I can see. They got left out to dry. And what exactly does their game look like moving forward? They thankfully don't have to deal with that up to this point because Gata is the one that ends up going to Tribal Council. But before we get too deep into all of that, please hit the subscribe button to this channel. I greatly appreciate the community continuing to grow right now and talk about Survivor with you fine folks. So anyway, like I was saying, the episode starts off with basically what happens after the Gata Tribal Council, where Teeny's completely blindsided, loses Keyshawn, their number one ally. But with them gone, now they have to kind of move forward. So Genevieve, Rome are really the ones that Teeny has to make amends with. And it sounds like, based off of how it was discussed, the new queen of the game, Genevieve, tells Teeny essentially like, yeah, you're going to have to work with Rome. And it looks like Rome, if he doesn't wise up, he's going to be the one that's going to go. So, yeah, you got to work maybe temporarily to get back into the game with Rome, but ultimately Rome's going to be a target in the end. And Rome basically smooths it over with Teeny as well. And it gives me the impression that even though Rome's a gamer, Rome is also very impressionable. So going into this next phase of the game where, spoiler alert, they're probably going to be merging this upcoming week because in the preview it says drop your buffs. So I have to imagine Lavo, since they're going to come in as the 4 here, they're going to come in completely as a 4. Whereas I don't think Teeny is going to see it that way, but I think Rome will. So it'll be interesting to see how Lavo shapes up. But the next part of the episode that was really interesting was they go to the reward challenge where it was only 2 tribes. Everyone right away says, what is going on here? We only have a blue mat and a yellow mat. And that's because Probst said, listen, we're going to get everyone to split into 2 tribes only for 1 challenge. And whichever tribe wins, they're going to go to the Survivor Social, which is essentially just, the sanctuary, where they're going to eat the grossest hot dogs on the planet. And they split them up. There's a mix of all 3 tribes, and they compete against one another. They do a big obstacle course, and the yellow squad wins. It's the squad that has Sue, Kyle, Sam, Rachel, Tiyana, and Caroline. And I think this is a really good group to push together because there's a lot of power players in this group. A lot of people that I think potentially could work together once the merge comes. And there's a few people that have had overlap before, like Caroline and Teeny from the journey prior, where they both have amulets. Them being able to reconnect once again and being able to talk to like Rachel from the Gata tribe. They're starting to create touch points prior to the merge coming, which I thought was very interesting. Ultimately, I think when the players are shuffled around, it's better. I would have preferred an actual just straight up swap. However, swaps mess with the game. It's all based on luck, essentially. But we'll see how that pays off in the end. Boy, those hot dogs look gross, huh? I mean, yeah, Kyle got his like veggie dog, but the other hot dogs were like bright red. They looked like those little candy bubblegum cigars that I used to smoke as a kid, and they were just the grossest things in the world. But when you're out there, I'm sure the hot dog could be purple and you'd be all over it. But one thing that absolutely is going to pay off is Tiyana decided to throw Gabe completely under the bus. It was like some of the classic Mergatory Feast moves in the past of New Era, except it's not the Mergatory yet. That's the problem. It's like, I think of right away like Survivor 43, Gabler during the Mergatory. Out of nowhere, he's like, well, Ellie went through my bag. So that's something I remember, which immediately put a target on Ellie's back. And it worked. She was the first one that was voted out. And Tiyana saying that Gabe is the one that is going around looking for idols and is kind of the shady McShadester. The other people that were there from Tuku, like Sue and Caroline, did not much care for that, considering they are in a close alliance with Gabe. Gabe's been talking about ever since the beginning of the game, he wants to make a close alliance with Sue, an older player, and it looks like it's paying dividends already, because once they get back to camp, they tell Gabe the deal. They say, yeah, Tiyana was throwing you under the bus. So you need to just be aware of that. And it looks like there was some double dealing going on, though, where Tiyana was kind of warned, like, yeah, you should probably tell Gabe before Gabe finds out. And I thought that was really interesting. I actually believe this move from Tiyana sunk her game. I have no faith Tiyana is going to make it past the next 2 votes anymore. And it's a shame. Before the season started, I was so on board with Tiyana. I was like, she has this skill set that I think is going to be really good. And I still think she does, but I think she misplayed her hand in this game. And by her doing that, she's completely sunk. Gabe is going to continue to last in the game, and it sucks. It all depends on how the Mergatory goes, of course, and if she gets immunity. But Tuku is very dysfunctional, and I think Tiyana put herself right in firing range of everything. The good news is Kyle isn't going to be in firing range, and that's what I care about for Tuku. That's the only thing I care about at this point. Now, the Lavo dynamics were actually really fascinating because Teeny is trying to work themselves back into the tribe. Then Rome, of course, is still a big target. Soul is kind of at the mercy of everyone, sort of. It seems like Soul's game so far has been really just being told from every side what's going on that he's not aware of. And it's interesting because he's put up with a lot of nonsense, a lot of nonsense. Like, again, I like Rome as a character, but out there, I could admit he probably would be a little much. And I can't believe that Saul just didn't like pop him in the face that one time, that he just yelled at him. And I feel bad for Saul. He got turned around. Rome told him information about Genevieve, basically putting him out there as kind of a target. And Genevieve was lying, but Rome was telling the truth. And Soul didn't believe Rome after speaking to Genevieve, which I think speaks to how well Genevieve has been playing the game and how trustworthy she is. I mean, she admits to the camera. She said exactly what Rome said she said. But she's doing such a good job at playing the game that Rome's going to be the one that's going to get hurt the most, I think, from all of this. Come merge time, if Tiyana's not the number one target, I think Rome is. But based on previews, it looks like he may have something in his back pocket to save him. And it's funny because the whole episode we spend talking about the strategic dynamics of blue and also with red, Lavo and Tuku the whole time. Once it gets to the immunity challenge time, I said that, well, one of these two is losing because they spent the whole episode talking about what's going to happen next vote. And then Gata loses, Yellow loses, Gata loses, and we have to deal with the fallout of that. But before we even get to that, Gata won a few chickens an episode or two ago. And that's their reward. But the problem is, it looks like Sierra's not interested in killing the chickens. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner, not interested in killing any one of them so they can eat them. Sam, of course, is in the right. I've become such a Sam stan at this point. It's ridiculous. But there's a part of the game, and it's been the same way since season 2 of Survivor, where there's a social aspect to the chickens, where if everyone's not comfortable, just like with anything else, you have to find a way to make them comfortable, even if that means not eating chickens. The fact that they brought them back and they said, let's negotiate for some eggs, because we can at least get eggs out of them. And Probst, he laid like a rug, okay? Probst ended up giving up 18 eggs for those 3 chickens. Now, 3 chickens are better than 18 eggs. However, if I was Probst back in the day, I would have been like, you'll get like 4 eggs from me. Or you'd be like, you know what? 3 chickens? 3 eggs. I think it's a fair trade. And it would have gotten almost nothing. But this one, Probst, he really laid down for this one. It was another one of those instances where Probst has gotten soft, my friends. Unlike an egg, he's soft. Anyway, as I said, Gata ended up losing the immunity challenge. But before the challenge was over, in the very beginning, Andy did one of the funniest things in an immunity challenge possible. And you know what? It was all for the sake of trying to win the challenge. I'm not blaming him, nothing like that. I probably would have done the same thing. When he had to cut down the rope here, he had to get the full range of motion going. And it was one of my favorite mini clips of all time. I laughed out loud as I was watching the episode. Hip thrust aside, go back to Gata Camp, and Andy is putting on a performance. He shows his genius. He was hip thrusting the rest of the tribe in their brains when he said, listen, I know they think I'm on the bottom, but I think I have a pretty good alliance with Sam and Sierra. So Anika and Rachel are going to think I'm going. So I need to play my part. I need to play the part as pathetic guy begging for votes to get worked back into the game. And no one was on board with it. You know, Sam and Sierra were doing their part. They're saying, well, I wonder what Andy's going to do. And Andy did his thing. And the girls, the breadwinners, they ended up saying, like, you know, if he wants a plan, we'll give it to him. We'll say, hey, we're going to vote out Sam, essentially. And are you on board? He said, yes. He said, but the thing is, Andy, private, is like, perfect. My plan is working great. They pulled me in for a plan that I'm not going to take part in, but they did it. And little do they know, they didn't come up with this conversation. I forced them to have this conversation, and they don't even know it. Absolutely brilliant. And aside from the Andy dynamic is Sierra and Sam, who consider each other number ones. They've had disagreements. They've had a bro fight or two up to this point about which way to go. Sierra can go with the breadwinners, all the girls, or can go with Sam and Andy, which I think is the better way to go. Especially for this tribal council, Sam has an immunity idol that can only be used for one tribal. So he either uses it or loses it. Now for Sierra, you have the weight of Survivor history on you, which is they don't use female alliances. They don't do it. And I don't know what it is. I think there's only been 2 seasons where successfully a female alliance has really run through the game. Obviously, everyone knows Survivor 16, the Black Widow Brigade, and Survivor 24, One World, which is Kim Spradlin's puppets. Those are the only instances where it's really worked out super, super well. So I understand why a lot of people want it to go down again. Anika and Rachel are great people to do it with. But in this instance, I understand why Sierra went with Sam and Andy ultimately in the end, because obviously they get to tribal council, they do their back and forth, the votes happen, the votes were revealed, because it's very complicated this time. Anika did not have a vote from her previous journey, so she didn't actually have a dog in this fight. She had to really rely on Sam and Sierra voting for Andy in order for it to happen. But instead it was Sam, Sierra, and Andy voting out Anika, and Anika was unexpectedly kicked out of the game. Now, I saw this coming for a long time. I don't know if it was just the edit or it was just a natural me understanding Sam's motivations. Even if Sam and Anika were tight, he's very good at noticing these chokehold points where he needs to get in there and take control. So this is very preliminary. We'll see come merge time. But I have to say right now, I think Sam is most poised to win the game. I think Teeny is also poised to win the game. However, Sam, he's got it. He's just got it right now. And it's freaking me out because in addition to Sam, I feel maybe winning the game, Andy has Final 3 written all over him. I know there's a lot of people who were like, oh, his meltdown in the first episode, why is he even out there? Well, I'm going to show you why he's out there, because he's on his way to making a huge splash in this game. He's got an amulet that is now going to start to take effect once they get on the beach. And that's something to remember for Mergatory next week, because these amulets only work once you get on the beach together, and they're supposed to be used together. But no one wants to use these amulets together, so they want to get rid of each other. That means Andy, Caroline, and Teeny are going to be looking for ways to get rid of one another. And that's important. And Andy probably is the least threatening of all 3 of those players. However, a lot of people really like talking to Teeny. They all feel good about Teeny. So that does scare me a little bit for his long-term viability. But at this point, I think Sam is going to do great in the game. I think Teeny is going to do great in the game. And I think Andy's going to do great in the game. And unfortunately, Anika is not. Anika, who has like every ability in the world, super smart, super gorgeous, super demanding of people, super competent, just got kicked out of the game. It was just the wrong tribe, the wrong formula. She trusted the wrong guy in Sam. And she was genuinely shocked to get out of the game. But there was a lot of commentary on whether or not she should have been like bitter or mad leaving the game. I'm personally one of those people. I think you shouldn't take too many things seriously, but losing Survivor, I think you should take pretty seriously. Like if anyone gets up there, goes to get their torch snuffed, and gives them all the finger, I'm on your side. I think that's how you should react. You just took bread out of my pocket, okay? You just made me lose the game that I love. Why would I be happy about this? I mean, maybe if I played the game and I was voted out and I would say, oh, guys, you got me. Maybe. But I think there's also an equally good chance I would say, fuck you. I think anytime that Castaway is kicked out of the game and they don't throw their torch like a spear at the remaining players is it just an absolute move of graciousness by the Castaway. It was a bummer to see Anika go crying, and in her confessional was really crying because that was some serious legit emotion, and I felt bad for her. However, I do want to also commentate for a hot second about Sierra's vote. Of course, the internet is already doing their nonsense from what I've seen. Twitter, Reddit, all those people. They're coming at Sierra, genuinely coming at Sierra, and already calling her a woman hater. Man, these soft Survivor New Era fans, I tell you, they're always looking for somebody that they can call a woman hater. And I feel free to say that about these folks because I'm a part of the fandom myself. I'm a content creator and I'm also part of the fandom. And I don't consider this to be undue criticism of the fan base. I think it's incredibly lazy non-critical to look at a woman who sides with a man for a vote. Like, it's so easy to just not do that. Instead, go like, what's the situation? Does it make sense? Like, for example, for Sierra, does it make more sense to go with Rachel and Anika moving forward when the chances are she's probably at the bottom of the alliance, or that she'd be fighting for the same role in the social strata of the game as either Anika or Rachel, versus Sam, who's a giant meat shield going into the merge, or Andy, who no one takes as a threat anyway, and he's got an amulet that's going to be on your side pretty soon. Like, I don't understand why people right away go like, oh, woman hater. They did this with Maria in Survivor 46, and that was all bull. They did it with Carla in Survivor 43, and that was even more bull. So I need the Survivor fandom to stop it. Even if you want a female alliance to run the game, fine. It doesn't make you a woman hater. Why does this have to be this way? I just don't get it. Like, this is one of the main reasons why I even started this channel in the first place. I love Survivor and I love yapping. That is true. But I started this right after the Survivor 43 finale because I thought the Twitter fan base was so toxic about the end result of the game. Not just Gabler beating Cass, who was like everyone's favorite, I guess, by that point. But instead it was because Carla said that she was going to turn the jury against Cass. Cass was the victim in all of this. No, forget that it couldn't have been a strategic manipulative tactic for Carla to try to keep Cass, or get Cass to keep her in the game. And forget that. No, they're like, no, she poisoned the jury. That's why Cass lost. It's Carla's fault. She hates women and blah, blah, blah. And it's ridiculous, okay? So I'm asking, I'm begging Survivor fans to please use critical thought instead of being mean, and especially the people that are sending threats to Sierra via Instagram or her private messages in whatever platform. I know what happened to Carla. I know what happened to Maria. I've talked to them both about it, and I think it's absolutely ridiculous that anyone would do that. Because you have to remember, these are real people. The people that you're saying this to, they're out doing normal stuff. They're probably sitting on their couch eating goldfish right now. They're not characters on a TV show. They're real people. So please, can we try to remember that? Anyway, off my soapbox. Moving on to the next episode. We see some previews. They're dropping the buffs. They're going to be merging. Shocker, the tribe's going to be purple and yellow. Yanu colors. Not excited about that. And they have a very ugly immunity necklace. But I'm not going to harp on that too much. However, going to the next episode, it looks like there's going to be kind of a different way they're going to do it. It's still going to be mergatory. It kind of looks like only one person's going to have immunity. We'll see. It also looks like Rome is going to get an immunity idol, and I can't wait. I love Rome on Survivor. So the fact that he may go in with an advantage makes me so happy, and I know it will make the internet so unhappy. I am happy to make jokes at things, but I just want to make sure everyone is having a good time, and I think Rome in the game is a good time for fans, no matter what, even if people don't fully understand that him being in the game is a good thing. Like, watching every week someone that you're like, oh, why can't they get him? It's the best thing, whether you realize it or not. But that's going to do it for the episode. Thank you so much for watching. I greatly appreciate it. And remember, I'll start having castaway interviews coming up now that the merge has happened. In the pre-merge, I don't like to do castaway interviews quite as much to recap episodes because there's not as much meat on the bones. It's hard to really predict. Now that we're in merge, we know who's going to be going to tribal, and it's going to get a lot more interesting. That's going to do it. Hope you have an amazing day, everyone. You take care. Goodbye.